So now I believe that editor has been installed, you've installed Python, you've made sure that everything is working properly. So we're going to be doing a few things now, very basic programming in Python. And this is really important because the foundation of Python starts from here. So the very basic thing in Python programming or in any other language is variables. So when we talk about variables, we're talking about just a container which holds some kind of a value. So when I say a container, I'm just talking about a space in memory. So if you have your memory, there will be a space in memory that anytime you create a variable will be allocated, and that space will be used for something. So let's say in Python or in any other language, once you create a variable, let's say the name of the variable is called age. Once you say age in Python, all you've done is you've created a container and you just put a label, and the label of the container is age. Or in other words, in computing, what you're saying is that you've created a space in memory, and that space in memory, you've put a label called age. So basically, we wouldn't want to go too much into the details, but it's just an address in memory. You're just saying that I need a space in memory, call it age, but the system will have an address for that memory, which will be assigned, maybe assuming the address is FF, it will be attached to the age. Once you say age, it will look into its diary and then see where age is, and it will go to that space. One, the reason why we call that space a variable is the fact that we can put any value in there. In Python, you don't need to declare what's data type. So we'll look at data type shortly, but in Python, you don't need to determine what information you want to put there. All you have to say is that I'm creating a variable and this is the information. You don't have to tell me the type. And so if you could see down here, we have similar containers here, but they are all holding different values, and that makes it a variable. Basically, it's the same thing, but it has different thing in there. Now, in Python, anytime you declare a variable or anytime you want to use a variable, you just have to mention the variable. So for example, the age we saw earlier on, you just say age and then you put the age there. And so basically what we've done in effect is visually, this is what you've done to the computer. You've gone to a space in the computer and then you've created a box in the memory, and then you've labeled it age, and then you said, okay, this is going to be 4. So anytime we say age, Python will go into that space and then bring back the 4. That's what Python does when you declare a variable. In other languages, you need to mention the data type of the variable. So we have different data types, but we're going to limit ourselves to at least 4 fundamental data types in Python. We have integers. So when we talk about integers, we're looking at any whole number. So 1, -1, or even a 0. Any positive number, negative number, and a 0. These are all integers because they are whole numbers. Another one that we have in Python, mostly we have other numbers. So we have decimal. The decimal, we refer to it as floats. So floats is just any number that has a decimal place. So maybe 2.4, or maybe let's say 10.1, or maybe 5.6. That's what a float is. But the difference between this and this one is the fact that with a whole number, you don't really care about the decimal. Mostly, you only care about the whole part, and sometimes you can convert a decimal. So you can convert a decimal into whole, and then you can convert a whole into decimal. Anytime you convert a whole into decimal, if it's 1, it's going to be 1.0. If it is 10, it's going to be 10.0. So basically, you can move from here to here and from here to here, depending on what you want to achieve. And so these are 2 data types for numbers. And we also have another data type called Boolean. So Boolean is anything that can be set to true or false. it's a new data type that has only two states. So for example, in the context of networking, if you look at interfaces, an interface can be on or off. So it's a shut. So we can say maybe shut if you create a data type, or if you create a variable called a shut, you can set that to true, or you can set that to false. So if it's shut, then it is true. If it is not shut, meaning no shut, it is false. So basically, in the context of networking and interfaces, you could use booleans to describe whether or not an interface is on or off. Then we have string. String is the one that most people use the most. So like when we were doing the hello world, we did something like this. We said hello world. But the only thing we did was we put that in a speech marks. So when we talk about string, we're just talking about characters on a keyboard that are used somehow in some fashion. So if you look at this particular one, it's having different characters. Like your email can be rab2 at maybe gmail.com. It has a mix of numbers and characters, other symbols, and other, say, alphabets. And so this is a typical string. So a string is just any random characters that would make sense to you. It doesn't really have to do any other thing. It makes sense to you. You can use it for so many things. So mostly the configurations that we're doing, if you saw my configurations, most of them were strings. So it's going to be like strings. All right. So